Hi everyone, happy Friday. I'm recording this from my back porch in Arlington, Massachusetts, where we're having one of those sneaky October warm days in New England. I'm next to my dog and my dying plants. But that's not the focus. The focus today is going to be on highlighting three of your colleagues who are doing a really fantastic job taking advantage of opportunities for full class video feedback. And this is really great for a couple of reasons, but your colleagues are really increasing the impact with each student every time they make a video that goes out to the entire class instead of just one student. They are actually likely saving themselves time in many circumstances by saying the message one time to the whole class instead of repeating some variation of a similar message to each student, giving them each very specific feedback when you really could have taken an opportunity to just say it one way. And thirdly, that's really important because these students are getting a really consistent message from their teachers about what the teacher expects, and the same kinds of feedback. So there are three teachers we're going to highlight today. Jen Pratt from Microeconomics, Laura Reyes from Medical Problem Solving, and Jeff Schwartz in his poetry class. So first, let's take a look at Jen's class. This is in Jen's course at the beginning of one of her modules. I'm just going to play the video, but she takes a moment at the beginning of the module to share what she's learned about the habits from students, how they move through the course, from her last experience, the last module. So let's see it.
Hi everyone, welcome to Module 2. Actually, before we get into Module 2, I want to give you some feedback about how things are going from my perspective based on Module 1. So this isn't feedback about any one person in particular, this is just general feedback about how things are going in the course. So I want to give you 3 bits of feedback here. One is about how you are looking at the course and how you're navigating through the different sections of each module. The second is about the expectations for the amount of time or the length of your assignments and postings. And the third thing is about setting up meetings outside of the course, individual meetings.
So Jen goes on to talk about how students move through Canvas, and she shares a conversation she had with a student that sort of illuminated a different way that students have been moving through the course than she thought they were moving through the course. So she sort of gives them some feedback on best practices, and she gives them some feedback on expectations she has about showing up for meetings and making sure that they make time to make their coursework a priority. The second example I want to talk about is Laura Reyes in Medical Problem Solving. This video, I'm just going to start to play it, but she's finishing up introducing the unit and reflecting a little bit by using some student work to explain what she's talking about.
I wanted to also share with you a couple of submissions for research presentations that were done, and both of them were done a little differently, but I want to show you some points that I'd like all of you to use from now on. So this first one, I'm going to put it in the presentation mode. This first one, love the background, but you'll notice, I'm just going to kind of breeze through it, they didn't relist their learning issues. I'm assuming they're coming up here, but you'll notice 2 things, lots of pictures and very short definitions.
So Laura goes on to explain, she uses 2 examples of exemplary student work, which is really great because when she just chooses 2, she's really able to be specific and give really concrete feedback that students can apply to all of their projects. And she really highlights for them what she's looking for when she goes through in grading these projects. I also really like this example because it's so clear how warm and approachable Laura is. She spends a little time at the beginning of this video sharing a puppet that links to the last thing that they did in the course. So she sort of established this routine of an intro video at the beginning of each module where she shares some quirky thing, whether it be an artifact from the 1970s that she found in her last apartment or something related to the material, but it's kind of a cool way to establish connection with kids as well as give them feedback. The third example I want to show is from Jeff's course. The background for this assignment is that students were asked to interview a family member and then write a poem based on that interview. They wrote the poem and shared the written version along with an audio version, themselves reading the poem, to a class discussion board, where they were then asked to, I believe they were asked to give each other feedback. So they were assigned certain groups, and they were told to give each other feedback on the poem. What I really like about this video and what Jeff is doing here is he's actually chosen to go through one student's poem with the group, and I'm just going to play it for you before I say any more about it. Let's see.
This is Mr. Schwartz. I want to look at two poems really closely this week, or closer, and share these because they're so wonderful in many respects, but they also have opportunities to revise that could be interesting for all of us to look at and think about too. So the first one is going to be by Eliot. Okay, this is going to be a bit of an experiment, and I hope I could just talk out some comments and that they make sense. But I'm going to look at Eliot's poem. I'm going to assume that you've read it and that you know it pretty well. So if you haven't, go back and listen to her reading. And I have to say, Eliot, that hearing you read it...
So Jeff goes on. He spends the next 8 or 9 minutes actually using the student's work as a piece that he can convey content about certain pieces he wants students to focus on. So I like this because he begins with the details he observed in the poem. He then goes on to talk about the impact of those details, and then the recommendations or suggestions he has for the student going forward. What I really love about that is that he's really modeling for students what peer reviews should look like. So students can go back to this video when they're getting ready for their next peer review and listen to their teacher go through this one poem and try and adapt some of those techniques. So those are my 3 examples for this Friday. I hope that you can see the ways that these teachers are using video feedback to be consistent, have a consistent message to students, to save themselves some time by only having to give that message once instead of maybe 17 times, and to establish that, that same sort of presence and routine by communicating these videos regularly. All right, I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.